Welcome to Bare Bones. With your hosts, Dr. Mason West.
Welcome into this episode of Bare Bones. As always, I am Mason West, Dr. West, however you want to put it. Today, I am fortunate enough to be joined by the incomparable Taylor Dahl, Helmets and Heels on 1010XL, host of Second City Gridiron's own Making Monsters, co-host of Bear Squad Show at Locked On Bears. I don't know how you have time to do all that. That's insane to me. How are you doing, Taylor?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on. Two things, Mason. Number one, your intro every time, like I've been on this show before, and every time I'm like, that's so impressive. It gets me kind of pumped up. And your background. I love it. The good, better, best. I've been saying that nonstop recently.
I think some of my favorite stuff. Oh, hey, what's up? Vizzo Joe. Hi, how you doing? Love to see people in the chat. Feel free to interact, everyone. I try to bring everyone in as much as possible. So go ahead, throw those comments if you're listening live. But yeah, like I think one of my favorite things, besides just how I want to run through a brick wall every time I hear Ben Johnson say that, is you're seeing it like just matriculate. You have parents posting it. Like I heard this one video, it was a dad and his two daughters who were just like chanting it. It was just very cute, very cool. So it's cool to see the culture that we always talk about when it comes to football start to really go through the city of Chicago.
Yeah, actually create a good one.
Besides what there has been, exactly. All right, so first up, we have our chart review. There's actually a lot of news to talk about here. First and foremost, we're going to start off that the Bears traded for an edge rusher. All right, I mean, it wasn't someone that a lot of people were thinking about, the Jermaine Johnsons of the world, the pipe dream that might have been a Trey Hendrickson, but the Bears traded Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, was drafted by the Buccaneers back in for the first pick and 32nd overall by the Bucs. He only had 15 sacks and 138 tackles across his 4 seasons so far as a pro. The Bucs declined his 5th-year option, and he's ended up signing a deal with the Browns. But now, in addition to swapping a 6th rounder for a 7th rounder for Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, the Bears have also lose out on a 7th round compensatory pick in 2026 that they were going to get for the departure of Tevin Jenkins to the Browns. Taylor, what are your just thoughts on this trade?
Yeah, I think it's underwhelming in the sense of, I think a lot of people wanted that big splash name of one of those edge rushers that's really going to come in and create something immediate. But I personally think that Ryan Poles handled this the right way. I think that he knows what this offseason can look like. And I expect that free agent edge rush kind of frenzy to be a little crazy this offseason. And then I just feel right now overspending, which you would have had to if you're getting a Max Crosby, if you're getting a Trey Hendrickson, some of those guys, the names were floating around, you would have had to. They said they called for a Jermaine Johnson. Obviously, they felt that was too high. So it's not like they weren't trying. It's not like they weren't making calls and trying to figure out something else. But I just think ultimately they felt like they'd be paying too much for a player that possibly you could get somebody else in the free agency in the offseason. And so I know we go back to Montez Sweat, and it reminded me of that because I think they were confident in the sense of that, okay, his contract's ending. So not only we're getting this player, but we also get to negotiate the further contract for this player. They aren't locked into something that's already been made into, and that's what would have happened pretty much with some of those guys. So it's underwhelming in the sense of I don't know how much it helps immediately or at all. It's a rotational guy. I think you'll see some pressures. You may see a couple sacks. I'm not expecting anything explosive from him personally, but I do think that losing Dio was a big thing and you had to replace him in some way.
And that's the thing, right? You lost Dio, you lost Shamar Turner, who was playing a lot of edge for you instead of defensive tackle. And Ben Johnson talked a couple weeks ago about how important he was as an edge player for defending the run. But you literally just needed a body at some point. And, yes, you could try to grab someone off the street, but there's a reason those bodies are on the street. There's also a reason that you got Troy for what you got him for. But as a layer to that, you mentioned free agency. I mean, he'll be a free agent after this year, so you can see what he'll end up looking like in the scheme. His body type fits what Dennis Allen wants, and that's also important because as excited as I am for Austin Booker, his body type doesn't necessarily fit that traditional big long edge that Dennis Allen wants. So what does that snap count look like? And next year, you're going to have guys like Trey Hendrickson, Khalil Mack, Malcolm Kuntz, Leonard Floyd, Danico Autry, Draymond Jones, and the list goes, that are going to be available next year. And at the end of the day, if you're not trading, I believe the Jets were asking for like a second round pick for Jermaine Johnson. That's also where now you can be looking in the draft. And that's what you want. You want homegrown talent instead of paying guys like Dio, who tried, but really only had one sack, and it was against a backup left tackle.
Yeah. How funny if that Leonard Floyd comes back. Just be
every
like,
year he's available. I keep being like, Leonard, come on, come back. Brian paid, people are gone. It's okay.
I loved it. I honestly was a little upset. I know he wasn't as productive in Chicago. He kind of took off after leaving, but I was like, give the guy a chance a little bit. And then, of course, he's done what he has since then. And there was guys like Yannick Ngakoue, I believe, is still out there. So I wonder if there was any phone calls. I know he's already been here and didn't give you much, but just kind of the experience of being in Chicago and giving you some stuff on the edge. I'm interested to see if anybody, they had any sort of talks in that realm. But yeah, there wasn't anybody just sitting there waiting for a phone call that was worth it, I think, in this moment in time.
No, totally agreed. And if you're looking for a silver lining to this move, JTS has not played much for the Browns. He only played about 31 total snaps, but he has a PFF grade of 73.5 and a 29.2% pass rush win rate, which is actually better than any Bears currently on the roster. Yeah. So now if you expand that role, those numbers probably change. But again, if you're looking for a silver lining.
Yeah.
Another news, Bears tight end Colson Loveland was named NFC Offensive Player of the Week with his 118-yard, 2-touchdown performance in Cincinnati. Looking ahead to this Giants game, do you think Colson Loveland can continue this trend, or was it more of a little blip just based off of the matchup?
Yeah, I think we can expect more and more from Colston. I do think it's hard to predict what the Bears are going to do weekly, and it's a good thing. We had the conversation last year, Mason, of what are you going to do with all of these players when it comes to, when it comes to Keenan Allen and it comes to DJ Moore and you have Rome Odunze and you have all the, and it didn't work out last year, but this year it does feel like that. Obviously Rome had those first 4 weeks where it was pretty much, you felt like all Rome, but then the run game kicked in and you started seeing, Swift had a couple games, then obviously Kyle Monangai, and then you've seen not a ton of Cole Kmet, but he had a couple moments where you're like, all right, you're using the tight ends a little bit. Then Colston had his games. Zacchaeus has been a part of pretty much every game. And so I do think it's interesting because you never really know what the game plan is going to be, which makes it difficult for defenses because they're probably also asking, like, was that just an off game like a kind of lucky game for Colston, or is this the beginning of everything and him breaking out? I think he's a really, really good tight end, and I think you're going to continue to see him get better and more comfortable in this offense. And I do think he was banged up. I think maybe that factored into some of the things early on of usage and maybe just not totally being there. We saw a couple drops early on that you would have liked him to have. I see all of that starting to settle out, especially a game like this. If you watch Colston at all in college, he's a gamer. He's that type of guy that when the lights come on, he'll kind of that switch flips, but he also is very vocal. So go back and watch some Colson Loveland interviews from college, and he's confident. And I think that confidence can build off of last week.
Yeah, funny enough, that NFC Offensive Player of the Week, he's the first Bears rookie to receive the honor since Jordan Howard had it in 2016. And he's the first rookie tight end to win it since Jeremy Shockey in 2002, wow. Which is pretty crazy. Until exactly like you said, I think there was that injury that I think set him back a little bit. I think the whole Bears offense was a little disjointed to start the year, which wasn't helpful. But when you add in the route he had in his first touchdown from last week, it was the same play that they had DJ Moore run at the end of the game the previous week. I mean, he just continued his route. DJ had settled it. So you're seeing more connection, I think, between Colston and Caleb. And Ben Johnson himself said that Loveland not being in the offense was on him. That was something that he needed to work on. And every time Ben Johnson has said something, it has come to fruition. And we saw that last week.
Yeah, and I think it goes to the same conversation, I think, with the DeAndre Swift in the run game. When the run game wasn't working, Ben Johnson came out and was like, it's not on DeAndre Swift of why this isn't working. It's on me too. And then the next 2 weeks, DeAndre Swift had career games almost. So I do think Ben Johnson knows and he's aware. I do think also there's this combination of him getting to know his personnel, the personnel getting to know him. It's a more difficult scheme if you look at some of the playbook and things they're learning, which we heard about that. Everybody said it's going to take a while. Some people were saying it's going to take 2 years. I think it was Orlovsky for Caleb Williams to get this playbook and this scheme down. I think he's getting a little quicker than that, but I do think it took a little bit of time for all these guys to get on the same page. And it's been fun to watch the progression. Obviously, you want some more things to kind of level out, but I do think Ben Johnson is honest, and he's so far everything that you kind of thought he would be and everything you would have asked for.
It's crazy to go from guys like John Fox, Matt Nagy to an extent, Matt Eberflus, and hear literally the word salads that they shove out there. And Ben Johnson still has his things where he's not as forthcoming when it comes to injury stuff and some of that. But when it comes to true football, he's as open of a book as you're going to get from a head coach during those press conferences, which is very refreshing.
It is. Yeah. It felt like before everything, especially Matt Eberflus is the most recent that you can always remember, but it always felt like, well, we've got to figure it out. And it's on us, like it's on me and it's this, and it's never really like, what was the issue? And Ben Johnson's not afraid to be like, this person needs to step up or this person should have done this, but also this is on me. It's a combination of a lot of things. We always know the Nagy's thing was we got to find the why. And we're like, we've been trying to find the why for 2.5 years and we can't figure it out. So at some point you've got to figure out the why. But yeah, so it's nice to have a coach who holds accountability for their players, but also takes accountability.
No, absolutely. Some other news. According to Ian Rappaport, that it's going to be a busy couple weeks for cornerback Asante Samuel Jr. He's visiting the Panthers, I believe it was yesterday. After that, today he's visiting the Packers. Friday's the Vikings. The 49ers on Monday, the Bears on Tuesday, and the Steelers on Wednesday. All right, so Asante Samuel, good corner, young corner, but unfortunately he had a neck fusion to help. He was having nerve problems tingling down into both of his arms. He had a combined 4 interceptions, 24 pass breakups with PFF coverage grades above a 75 in each of his last 2 healthy seasons in 2002 and 2023. He's really, in my opinion, got more upside than a lot of the corners in the Chicago Bears current cornerback room. Now, like, let's say he signed next week for the sake of argument. No, don't think he's signing as a starter, but a young player that's talented with that injury and how hurt the Bears cornerback room currently is, he would be I would think, a welcome asset.
Yeah, I love him as a player. I think that you need something desperately back there. You don't know or if Jalen Johnson's going to be back this year. Kyler, we're expecting Kyler to come back, but I mean, it already was a situation where he missed, came back, then had to leave again. That groin is always such a weird thing to have to deal with, and I'm sure you know way more about that than I do. But when it comes, I think it's more of a question for you when it comes to that spinal fusion, because I think people hear that and it scares them. Is it something they should be scared of?
I think if I'm drafting him, so I talked about this a lot with, why am I blanking on his name? The edge rusher who got drafted by the Colts with a neck fusion. Whatever.
Laiatu.
Thank you, Laiatu Latu. I wouldn't draft that player just because I think it shortens your career. And especially for a first round pick like Latu that's something that it's just hard to do, and especially in a position even that important. Now, if you're going to sign a player who you don't have to worry about that, and now you're able to, have that conversation of what do the guarantees look like? What's the years? Like, are there injury clauses? What does all that look like? I'm more than willing to do so because at that position, I'm not worried as much about the week to week, year to year issue. It's more of the, what does that look like in 5 years? So, but again, you didn't draft the guy, so that's not a draft pick issue, and you get to make the contract. So, is there a situation where, yes, with the wrong hit, because with that fusion, you do have a reduced mobility, you do have compensation above the joint and below the joint? Can something happen? Absolutely. But that's more of a how moral conversation at that point. And it's up to the player if they're going to play. Now the team can say, hey, we're not comfortable with this, but some teams, the Colts did that with Latu, said we are comfortable. If you go back to Justin Ross with the Chiefs, they were the only team that were interested in him. 31 teams said we're not comfortable with this.
Yeah, with Latu, I talked to a lot of people during that time because obviously he was very in the mix of where the Bears were drafting and what that could look like. And so a lot of people, even in college, like the reason he had to leave at first was because they were like, we are not comfortable with you playing football here. So he went to a school where they would let him play. And like that, I guess, is a player's choice at that point. So if Asante Samuel feels like he could go out there and play and he's passing, he'll have to pass all the physicals and do all of that stuff. So you'll see those things. But I think he's a really good player when he was healthy. So I feel like give it a shot because the cornerback room needs it very badly.
All right, last thing we got here before we move on to the training room part. Bears coach Ben Johnson referred to right tackle Darnell Wright as a unicorn again. When asked about his cartwheel at the end of Sunday's game, he said, we have to continue to highlight what he can do with or without the ball. So when do we get a Darnell Wright throw, catch, something of that? Where's the trick-em dickum play for Darnell Wright coming?
It has to be coming. I just feel like we've seen so many things. Ben Johnson's pulled up, all sorts of things out of his sleeve recently. We saw a few of them this last game. But I do think that you go back to practice, and it was kind of funny because that was some of my favorite drills to watch, by the way, back in practice, when you saw the videos of like the O-line and D linemen playing wide receiver and DB against each other. I was like, it's so funny to watch like these big men cover and catch the way they were. But Darnell Wright, I was like, how did he get so high? Like, this is a big guy and he's getting up in the air. But I mean, we used Penei Sewell, and Ben Johnson said this when he first came to Chicago, the comparison of Darnell Wright to a Penei Sewell, saying he kind of reminds me of a Penei. I can't remember the exact quote, but something in that world. And I remember everyone kind of laughing at it. But this is what he means. He's not saying like he is Penei Sewell. He's saying he's the type of tackle, the type of offensive lineman that I could do these sort of things with. And when it comes to all of his trick plays and things like that, Darnell Wright, even playing kind of banged up right now, has been able to do some really incredible things. So I feel like it might be coming. My guess would be a catch. I don't know if he's having him throw, even though we're seeing everybody throw right now. Maybe we see one of those trick kind of funky things that we've seen where it's like DJ or Cole throwing to Darnell. That'd be kind of wild, but I feel like something like that has to be cooking up.
I'm picturing Darnell split out wide on the line, and you're thinking he's going to block, but all of a sudden he's the one that drops back for the screen while Rome and Cole Kmet are the ones who are actually blocking for him.
Yeah. What are the rules of all that? And that's what I think, like, because I remember we got called on the penalty because the offensive lineman ran the ball in, and it was like this big thing where we were like, why did that happen? I guess he has to be like they have to say he's eligible. So the team knows that he's in the play in some way. So I feel like something's happening, but maybe they don't know exactly what's happening.
It's all about the reporting that's eligible. I mean, you'll see every time, right, the wiping of the chest when like Ozzy Trapillo comes in as that sixth lineman. So this also happened a couple of years ago. There was a Dolphins play where two of them were in a screen, and their lineman, I think it was the right tackle, accidentally caught the screen pass. And so like he ran it for a touchdown, but I was like, no, that's all right. That was an illegal play. Yeah. So yeah, you do have to give it away a little bit. So the question ends up becoming, how much are you honoring that? If he's the one that reports as eligible compared to someone else, are you right away saying, oh, here's a pass to them? Because if you do, now all of a sudden that opens it up for insert this other player.
Yeah, that's true.
But I have to play this. I made a request on Twitter back on Monday, and JJ via Twitter at Revenge of JJ supplied this to me.
Quando vivo solo sueno horizonte falto de palabras. En la sombra entre luces todas negre para mi mirada. Si tú no estás junto a mí aquí, por ti volaré.
All right, you get the rest of it, just a bit.
Who did he get on that one? Do you remember?
Who was he blocking?
Yeah.
Oh, that was Shamar Stewart. Everyone's
Stewart got worked.
Least favorite edge of that draft play. It was crazy.
Yeah. Because Benedette got him too into the sideline. Both of them just rocked Turner's world. I was so anti Shamar Turner. Even last week, people were yelling at me because I posted something because he has like, of the rookie defensive ends, he has the least amount of pressure percent of any of the rookie defensive ends. And I just quote tweeted just something along the lines of like, Color Me Shocked or whatever, that Shamar
Right.
Turner or Shamar Turner. And immediately I didn't know there was like a fan base that was really protective of him, but they were in my mentions and they were like, he was like playing really well week 1 and blah, blah, blah. And then this happened this game. And I was like, all right. I think the guy had like 3 sacks in college. I just don't believe it.
Danny and I talked this all draft season, like, and when people kept trying to shove Shamar Stewart onto the Bears, and
I keep saying Turner instead of Stewart.
it is confusing to have 2 Shamars like that. But like, it's one of those things where it's like, if he's good at football, why isn't he good at football? It's at the end of the day, you have to produce. I don't care what your 40 time is. I don't care how bendy you are. Like, if your job is to get to the quarterback and you don't do it, I just don't care.
One of the, and this is quick, we'll move on, but one of the articles I read that one of the scouts literally said he has all of the variables, the measurements, all of those things, but the quote said he has no idea how to play football. And I was like, okay, this is a problem.
It's kind of a prerequisite, you think, to playing this sport. All right, we're moving on to our training room roundup conversation. And actually today, fortunately, it gets to be more of a brief conversation. It seems like for the most part, the Bears are going to manage injuries. So that's going to be, right, a lot of guys either not participating or even like limiteds that by the end of the week become limiteds or fulls. So really the only starter who is not limited at least is TJ Edwards. He's got that hamstring. He had the hamstring earlier in the year that set him out a couple games. And as much as I think Noah Sewell has been doing well for the run game, he's a pretty heavy liability in pass coverage. So that's a bummer if Edwards can't go even against a very running back and receiving core for the Giants.
Yeah, and you saw that. I think I gave Noah Sewell a lot of credit early on because I do think we saw several big plays from him. But to your point, it was a lot of against the run game or like goal line stuff, which I guess usually you're running because that's where you kind of saw him make some of his bigger plays. But TJ Edwards is just a different monster and the things that he could do. And you could tell because the moment he came back and was healthy, you saw that run game in general. I mean, the run defense get a little bit better. But this is good. And I think that every week we've seen this long list of names when the injury report comes out and everybody freaks out. But to your point, I think maybe they are a little more precautionary than previous years and give Joe Thuney all the rest days he needs because I think he deserves all of them. Yeah.
Apparently he also just never needs to practice because I think he's gotten called for like 1 penalty and almost never allows a pressure. So like just sit in a lounge chair all week. You do you, Thuney.
Yeah.
On the note of Sewell, before we look at some of the other players, I just pulled this up. He is allowed 20 targets. He's allowed 18 completions, 131 yards, 3 touchdowns for a passer rating allowed of 133.5.
Yeah, not good. What games were those when he was in full time? Do you know?
So those were going to be the ones where Edwards was out. So I believe.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to remember which ones and like who he was going against during those. Sorry, put you on the spot.
No, I got it. It's right here. All right, so it's going to be Dallas, Vegas, and we're the main 2.
Okay. Vegas, not good. Dallas, I mean, that offense is that offense. So, but yeah, it's not ideal. I think that hopefully, because he has a hand and a hamstring.
Yeah, the hamstring I would assume is the bigger thing. The hand, I think, is just kind of like that's also there. Yeah.
But to your point, I think it's good considering some of the other injury reports we've seen throughout the year.
Exactly. So to knock a couple of these out, Josh Blackwell, concussion, 2 DNPs does not bode well. Whenever, again, concussion, it's progressive. So you have to be able to do just daily activities without symptoms. Then you ramp it up a little bit of cardio without symptoms, and you just kind of progress that until you get to football activities. And so the fact he's done no football activities, I would say he's not playing. Dominique Robinson with the high ankle sprain, he's going to be out not just this week, but I would have at least another week, just with the nature of how high ankles tend to be. So another reason why the trade for Joe was so as important as it was.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what I think that I've liked the bits that we've seen of Dom Rob too. So I do want him healthy and out there because spoiler for some things later, but I could see this not pass rush turning elite in any way. But I do think that when Dom Rob's healthy, the JTS adjacent Booker added, Sweat kind of on his role, you may see some better things, but you want those guys out there because you definitely feel like you need that defensive line rotation in there.
And then the last couple bits here, probably the biggest highlight, the fact that Luther Burden was full participant all week. That's going to be good for the offense. Amin Agbonbamiga, I'm sorry that I always butcher that name, but he is back and activated. I think you'll see a little improvement on special teams. And the fact Rome was limited, but that's just going to be management. DJ was limited. That's management. And same thing even with Kevin Byard management. The only one I might circle that could still miss, but I think will play would be Roshan Johnson. But at this point, I don't know what Roshan's doing.
Yeah, I don't know. Poor Rojo.
I had such high hopes for him, and it has not been able to connect any of it. If you go to the Giants side, there's too much to talk about here. Like there's so many DNPs. One of their starting corners, Paulson Adebo, who's not been good, but he's didn't participate. That's probably the biggest one to highlight. John Michael Schmitz, their center, didn't participate. But like, oh my God, it's
wow.
Andrew Thomas did their tackle, didn't participate, but that was rest. But yeah, it's a super long list. There's the only ones to really talk about the ones I mentioned. And then the fact that there's one of their starting tight ends, Theo Johnson, will play, and one of their starting corners, Andrew Phillips, most likely will play.
Yeah, the two, obviously, I think the John Michael Schmitz is one to pay attention to, because if we talk about the ups and downs of getting to the quarterback in general, but you've seen Javon Dexter get there a little bit, and Grady being healthy, maybe those two can get some things happening on the inside if you can take advantage of a backup center.
And then their biggest injuries are the ones that have happened earlier in the year and that they're out for the year, right?
Yeah,
the fact that
Neighbors and Scatterby.
So those are really the two. But the rest of it, there's a lot to parse through. I'm assuming it's going to clean up a bit up tomorrow, so look out for that report, because right now it's a mess for them.
You got to scroll a while on that one.
All right, little break here, and then we're going to get into the meat of the show.
Proper gut health is instrumental to athletic performance and recovery. Our gut is in essence a second brain, and health researchers are continually uncovering new benefits of probiotics, scientifically connecting the dots between gut health, reduced inflammation, and stronger immunity. Kombucha Aid is a tasty, clean label, functional option to easily add probiotics into any athlete's routine. We call it balancing your brains.
Kombucha is a premium performance-focused kombucha crafted specifically for athletes and active individuals. This revitalizing beverage blends the traditional benefits of kombucha with nutritional enhancements to support energy, hydration, and recovery. Better athletic performance, increased nutrient absorption, improved wellness, and improved cognitive stamina. Use code BEARGUTCHECK for 15% off your order. All right, knee-jerk reaction. This is one hot take that we each have going into this week. Taylor, what do you got?
So I said a little bit ago, maybe a little bit of a spoiler alert, but I do think we're going to see a bit more of a pass rush in this game. And I'm not saying when you talk about, obviously, Joe Tryon, I don't think that all of a sudden him coming here and everything's going to click and you get all this pass rush going. But I do think that some of the things when you talk about Montez Sweat, the last 3 games and what he's been able to do, I think you've seen a lot more. He's kind of coming back into his own on some of the things where you saw that first half a year you had him when the Bears signed him. I also do think I do like Austin Booker. I know a lot of people are talking about that body type not fitting DA's at defense, but I think DA is also good at kind of creating some of those things, manufacturing some of those things when it comes to pressures. That's the unfortunate part about Kyler Gordon not being out there also, because I do think if Kyler was out there, you'd see a lot more blitzing, that nickel corner blitz and things like that, which maybe he'll do with CJ Gardner-Johnson. We saw him get a sack this last week, and that's another reason. But I do think that with some of the up of Montez Sweat, the addition of JTS, Booker coming back, CJ Gardner-Johnson, what he can do in that world, the center possibly being out or at least being banged up and getting Javon up the middle, creating some pressures there. I do think that we may be able to see a little bit more of a pass rush and maybe even, dare I say, 2, 3, 4 sacks this weekend.
That would be pretty dang cool. And I know even early in the show, I said the whole body type thing. At the end of the day, you just need football players.
Yeah.
And even if it doesn't perfectly fit, that doesn't mean that he can't be a situational pass rusher. And I think the thing that's actually interesting to ask you this, with the Dom Rob injury, with Dio being out for the year, does Austin just become the starter opposite of Montez, or do you try to still rotate him a little more with it? Because can he play that many snaps with, again, that body type thought process?
Yeah, I think you have to try at this point, especially with Dom Rob not being there. I feel like if Dom Rob was healthy, then we'd probably see a bit more of a rotation. But I do think that Dennis Allen's the type of guy to test certain players' limits. And you saw it in New Orleans. Some guys that didn't quite fit his schemes, like he would try and they would try and manufacture some things. If it didn't work, you saw those guys not play a ton after that, but they'd get the shot. They'd get the shot to try and get to the quarterback. So I do think we probably see a lot of Austin Booker this weekend, and especially because I don't know how much you're going to throw Joe Tryon out there in week one, that after a few days of practicing with the team.
Yeah, that would be a lot to ask of someone who literally just got there.
Granted, he did and this is just a very because of this, and this, he was in Tampa. So he was kind of familiar with the Dennis Allen defense. Obviously they played Saints twice a year. So there is some sort of familiarity with the scheme and what Dennis Allen does. Not that a defensive player is really watching the defense film, but you're still familiar with it. And so maybe there's some where they're maybe that's the reason they went for a guy like this, because that is the division familiarity.
Oh, I could definitely see that. So my hot take, and again, this is a hot take, is I enjoyed what I saw from the offense last week. I'm happy with their progress, right? 293 passing yards, 283 rushing yards for 576 total, 4 for 6 in the red zone, 2 for 2 into goal to go. But I want a little more. And I say that in saying there are a lot of big plays, but the ones that were big were a lot of the, again, I use that term trick'em dickum, where, or plays where Caleb is off script. Mm-hmm. There were still points left on the field due to some missed field goals, missed blocking assignments, bad routes, inaccurate throws, etc. If this offense is going to take their next step in their evolution, I just want to see more success in your traditional drop back, one hitch, fire and throw kind of stuff, right? Can you just march down the field and then just run the ball down their gut for the touchdown? Or, it's a boot where Caleb is just able to, through the progression, get to the second read instead of the, as cool as they look, right? Instead of the reverse to DJ Moore, instead of the double pass for, Tyson Bagent back to Caleb, or even, right, Caleb's catch in the end zone.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually recorded a podcast earlier with Sylvie that's dropping tomorrow for my preview for the game this weekend. And I said pretty similar, where I was like, number one, I'm tired of leaving points on the field in situations where you definitely should be getting that. Some of it's penalties, some of it, we're not seeing a ton of turnover. So that's a good thing. The Bears have a plus 13 point turnover differential. So that's a very positive thing. But you want to see it not have to be something crazy happening for you to win the games. And I want a game to where you kind of feel like, and I guess Dallas was like this, but Dallas's defense is the worst in the NFL. So you want to see a game where you feel comfortable. And to your point, there's a lot of boxes that Caleb Williams has started to check off this year when it comes to that. The pressure to sack ratio, that's gone a lot better. Not holding the ball long when he doesn't want to. Everyone keeps talking about that time to throw, and it's very different. There's different ways to analyze that. Yep. But it's gotten better. He's not holding the ball. He's not taking the sacks like he was. That deep throw has gotten better. There's still some issue there, but it's definitely better than what it was last year. The mental going through progressions, that's gotten better. I've seen multiple guys break down film talking about that was his fourth read, and this is the throw he made on his fourth read. So there's a lot of things he's doing that's checking off those boxes. But I do think some of what I like to call the easy button stuff doesn't seem easy for them right now. And those are the things, to your point, I think if you start to perfect those, or at least get those down, you're having a team that can now feels like it can run the ball, that can now do all the easy check down in the flat, just some simple things, and then also can get the ball downfield when they need to. Oh, and by the way, Ben Johnson will cook up some sort of secret crazy play where somebody else is throwing the football. And so you have a recipe for a lot of wins if that happens. But I do think that teams will be able to take advantage of you if you're not able to kind of complete some of those easy things that they should be able to do.
Yeah, especially knowing your defense is not exactly the strongest right now, unless you get a turnover. You might still have to go blow for blow. I mean, we just saw that in the Bengals game, and the first person that blinks in terms of an offense might be the one that loses a game. And when you need to win probably at least 10, get it to at least 10 wins to make the playoffs, that could be the difference between missing and making this year.
Yeah, big time.
Next, to be perfectly honest, something brutally honest, I'll just jump into this one. I think the Bears lucked out a little bit with the Cam Skattebo injury. So when you look at Scat, so as a primary back against the Chargers, he had 70 since the Chargers game, he had 79 yards, 59 yards, 98 and 60 yards before he got hurt. Right, he had one more game. He had the one game against the Eagles where he had the 3 touchdowns. So kind of pretty crazy. I hide all this to show he was good, not great. But I think for me, it was more about the intensity and attitude that he brought to that team. Since his injury, the Giants are 0-2. They only ran for 68 total yards against the Eagles in the game that he got hurt. And he had 117 yards last week against the 49ers, which the 49ers defensive line is just made up of a bunch of just dudes at this point. Yeah. Like, it's not great. And 56 of that 117 was from Jackson Dart. So I think you combine their other injuries and the general state of the roster, this team ain't it. And just having a bit of an emotional blow, even from a rookie that was just more of a fun dude, it's a good thing that the Bears aren't having to necessarily deal with that emotion.
Oh, yeah, big time. And I think that I said probably like 3 weeks ago when we were looking ahead on the schedule, and I said, I honestly am more worried about the New York Giants than I am the Baltimore Ravens. And that was because at the time Lamar was hurt. Granted, we lost without Lamar anyways, but Cam Scatterbo terrified me. And I was like, every guy, like we had Ashton Genty looking like he was already a Hall of Fame running back when we played him. And I was terrified to play Cam Scatterbo. So I agree with you. I think we definitely got lucky there. My brutally honest is that our special teams just sucks right now. And it's really frustrating. Richard Hightower actually spoke on it today about, he knows there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. And he's talking about, like, you know, again, accountability for himself and accountability for the team. But watching missed tackles constantly on the kick when the opposing team is returning kicks, they're constantly starting on the 45, 50-yard line. In reverse, the Bears, Devin Duvernay, I feel like can only get like 20, 23 yards every time he gets the ball. Cairo Santos, that's a whole different story. We'll see how that looks moving forward, but you need a kicker that can make a kick longer than 50 yards, especially once we start getting to winter season in Chicago. You've got to get one. And I get it. Like, believe me, I have a lot of love for Cairo because I do think that we had those stats of him being the most accurate kicker in the NFL. I don't think he still is, but he's had that stretch of time. He also made some pretty solid kicks for us, including beating Green Bay last year at Lambeau, which we really wanted to do. But I just watched the Jaguars kick a 68-yard field goal, and I'm not confident in ours going up and kicking a 48. And I just don't know if that can be the case. So overall, I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done on special teams. I think one positive is that I think Tory Taylor's better. Like, I think I've seen some really good things from Tory Taylor. The even better part is the Bears haven't had to punt a lot. So I just saw today only 26 punts so far this season. That's in top 10 for least amount of punts of any team this year, and a Bears record in the Super Bowl era. So that's a positive thing. But I just think there's a lot of work to be done in special teams. And I don't really know how they're going to fix it right now with the personnel out there.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was actually going to talk about the special teams at a later point. So the fact that we're talking about this now is perfect. You listed it all out really well. I think one of the most frustrating things for me is the Devin Duvernay of it all, because I mean that's literally why you were brought here, was to be that kick returner, and he's always been someone that I've liked in that role, even when he was like with the Ravens and things like that. And like you average a return to what, like 20, 25, that's just not what you're looking for. And to start a game like you did against the Bengals, luckily with the Ben Johnson of it all and the culture and the mindset, it didn't cripple you, but to start already down 7-0 with 10 seconds off the clock because they returned it like they did untouched is insanely frustrating. And I remember I was listening to, I believe it was a conversation on the Athletic Football Show, so to give them credit, and it was a conversation about special teams as a whole. And so go ahead and listen to that if you can. It's a fantastic show. But one of the things that really stood out to me was a conversation about end of game scenarios, and with the field goals as they are currently, the fact that you have guys like the Jaguars hitting that crazy field goal, the fact that you have Brandon Aubrey on the Cowboys who is in range when he walks into the stadium. It's very different, the mentality of how many yards you now need to get in those end of game scenarios. And unfortunately for the Bears right now, I mean, anything over 40 yards, I'm very unsure what Cairo can do. And that extends even to the kickoff game where do you just need to kick it through the end zone? He can't really. I mean, luckily he got it pretty deep in that Bengals game where they chose not to return it. But that is a concern. And I remember talking to someone and they were just saying, well, Cairo's consistent in this yard range. And it's like, how much do I care about that right now?
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to say that right now because if all of a sudden, let's say you elevated Jake Moody and he misses a 35 yarder for you, then I'll care more. But right now, the truth that I'm looking at is the Bears are at a disadvantage when it comes to that game.
Yeah, I mean, you go back and there's a few examples already. I mean, this game easily you could have lost because Cairo couldn't make a field goal, couldn't make an extra point. You go back to the Vikings game, that possibly could be a win if Cairo, made that field goal. And so I do think there's too many situations now where it's hurt the Bears in a negative way and you're leaving too many points on the field. A team that I think that you talk about complementary football of being like, okay, if the defense I think was playing well early and the offense wasn't quite clicking. And so the defense was getting a bunch of turnovers though. And everything was kind of looking at least decent early on, even when the offense wasn't clicking. So you were winning some games. Then the defense starts getting really banged up. The offense starts taking off, the run game's going. It just hasn't felt like the special teams, other than the couple games Jake Moody was playing in the kicking realm, that you felt comfortable. And it just can't. I think that I don't really know, to your point, what if Moody they do get rid of Cairo and Moody comes out and misses a couple, and then you're back to like, okay, well, at least Cairo can make, that up to 40, 45. So it's a tricky thing, but you do have to start thinking about some solutions. This whole last game, I was like, just go for it. Like 4th and 5, go for it. 4th and 2, go for it. Because I don't trust Cairo, and that's not, you can't have that.
Why don't you just keep rolling? What is your, well, ain't this humorous? Something quirky or funny?
Yeah, I think one of I guess Darnell Wright cartwheel is the first thing that popped in my head for this. If anybody hasn't seen it, Ben Johnson talked about it too. It was hilarious. And this is when we talk about Darnell Wright in general and Ben Johnson's comment about with or without the ball in his hand. He's an athletic tackle, and I think he's a big athletic tackle, which it's wild to see him move the way that he does sometimes. But I just thought it was cool because in such a up and down moment, like heart shattered when they get the onside kick, to being able to have that Colston touchdown, to seeing Darnell Wright just doing well. Also, I missed the part where Caleb Williams smirking on the sideline right before they went out to go for that drive, and then winning, and then seeing Darnell just doing flips. Part of me is always like, be careful, don't like pull a hammy or something, but also have fun. So I just thought that was cool. It made me laugh. And I think them talking about Ben Johnson's so stoic all the time. And so like, even in that question, they were like, when you were watching the end of the game, you could tell he thought they were about to ask something about the game. And when they said the cartwheel, he immediately just like lit up and smiled. And that's the Ben Johnson we see on the field. He's in game mode. In the locker room, he's in let's have fun and go crazy, and we're a family mode. And so I just think it's really fun to kind of watch this team come together and have fun. It's been a while since I feel like we've been able to have fun.
That's such a good point that you raised, because it's been kind of tough covering the Bears as of late, and just being a Bears fan in general and Chicago fan for the most part, it has been tough. So to have just some energy infused is great. Mine was
go Bulls too.
The Bulls right now, fantastic. The fact the Cubs made the playoffs.
Oh, no.
The Blackhawks are at least in games, so that's fun. So yeah, right now Chicago sports is doing okay.
Yeah.
My well ain't this humorous, though I found it kind of funny, the worry and hand-wringing regarding Rome Odunze. Last week, there were some people saying Rome was too big of a focus of this offense, getting too many targets. Then he has a 0-catch, 3-target game, and people are hand-wringing again. Even after this 0-catch game, Rome still ranks 4th in percent of share of teams' air yards with 39.92%. So at the end of the day, and Ben is the kind of guy where he's going to put the game plan together that he thinks is going to be the best to win the game, right? And so that might be a game where Rome just blocks his butt off for the entire game, and that's going to change potentially even mid-game, right? I mean, obviously they were looking at Rome early, and that shifted. And there's going to be some games where DJ Moore gets a bunch of these, short, like handoff here, a screen there, maybe a fade route that he actually ran really well at that to get a first down on 3rd and 5, I believe it was. And then all of a sudden, there's a close and leveling game. So, every player, every week, I don't think we need to just dive in and overanalyze this. And even in a cluster, you might run in through 3 games in a row where it's like, why is this player not getting targeted more? But at the end of the day, this is a living, breathing thing with Ben. And you just have to live with that.
Yeah, my fantasy football friends were not happy at all who had Rome, but I don't care. I love Rome Odunze. If you follow me on Twitter. If you listen to any of my podcasts, I am the head of his fan club. And I was pre-draft. And so he's so incredible at all of the things that he does. And honestly, I love that he was mic'd up and the Bears put that out because it showed people that, number one, he's blocking his butt off this year. And that's part of Ben Johnson's thing. Like, no rock block, whatever that quote is. I always forget what it is. But if you want them to do all of it, you don't want to see which had been an issue with DJ Moore before when he wasn't getting the ball. You were seeing some pouting. You weren't seeing maybe full effort blocking, some of those type of things. And with Rome, you see all of it. Like he's high-fiving everybody else on the sideline the whole entire time, telling them good job. He's blocking crazy. We've honestly seen a ton of 11 personnel from Ben Johnson this year. And because Rome is blocking so well, I think that's a part of why it's working so well. So I do think that this is, to me, I'm not worried about Rome Odunze. I think we're still going to see more Rome Odunze games. I still think he can be one of the better wide receivers in the league. I just think that, to your point, there's a lot of mouths to feed on this team, and Ben Johnson's not one of those guys that's going to let Caleb have one guy that he's comfortable with. Ben Johnson wants Caleb to be comfortable in his offense, not with one player. And so that's one thing I keep focusing on. James Odunze is not really helping right now, but Rome commented on that today too, pretty much saying we can have, he has his own opinion. That doesn't mean they're the same. And so I respect that, because it's pretty much, his dad was saying trade him, and Rome's pretty much like, my dad is emotional and that's my dad and I respect him, but he has different opinions than I do. So I respect Rome for that too.
We got to be taking phones away from some of these parents, like Rome Odunze, Tyson Bajan's dad, James Daniels' mom. Everyone's getting too involved.
Oh yeah. And everyone said it would be Caleb's dad, and Caleb's dad's been so chill.
Done nothing. Every once in a while, retweet something fun.
Yeah.
All right, little break here, and that allows us to talk about the fact that we have merch. I'm wearing the hat for Bare Bones right now. There's shirts, there's cups, there's mugs, there's like maybe hoodies. I don't know. Do you have any merch for
I do.
Making
yes.
Monsters? What
Making Monsters does. Yeah, I think we all kind of have similar. I know I have mugs. I have shirts. I'm pretty sure I have a hoodie. Yeah, those are the three things that I know for sure. I've had a lot of my family members went ham on the shirts right away. So they are good quality, I've heard.
They are. They're actually solid quality. I have a shirt. A bunch of my patients bought shirts, which I think is very cool, which is fantastic. I'm throwing a QR code up right now. It's easy. You can scan it. It'll bring you right to the place where you can buy said merch. It comes to us to help us do cool things. Like, I keep bringing this up, but a couple years ago, we did a live show and got to meet a bunch of you listeners, watchers. We'd love to be able to do stuff like that again, but we do need funding for that. So if you buy stuff, it helps with that. second-city-gridiron-sop.fourthwall.com, or scan the QR code here at the 47-ish minute mark if you're listening to the podcast. Go buy stuff. What you need to know, just some interesting stuff and some questions I have for you, Taylor, regarding this matchup. The Bears versus Giants rivalry has been played 63 times with 8 postseason games. The Chicago Bears won 36 of those games, and the Giants won 25, and they also tied twice. The Bears lost their last matchup 12-20 in a game where the only points scored by the Bears was by kicker Michael Badgley at the time. Trayvon Wesco, remember him, had 1 catch for 23 yards for the Bears.
Oh my gosh. When was that?
That was 3 years ago now.
Okay. Yeah. Was that a Thanksgiving?
That one I don't recall. That's a good question.
Okay. I feel like I vaguely remember a Thanksgiving and just being very sad.
It's not a good time. All right, couple questions for you. We kind of talked about this a little bit, but in your opinion, did the Bears do enough at the trade deadline for where they are currently as a team?
I definitely would have liked a corner, honestly, but to your point, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if they really felt like giving away high draft capital for that. They don't have a lot of money to work with. So I really don't know what that would have looked like for them. But I just think this corner room needs help. And to what I mentioned earlier about the 2 injuries with Jalen and Kyler, those are massive players. Those are 2 of your best defensive players that you're without right now. And you see that when you see all of the charts right now of where the Bears defense is in pretty much every category. It's not good other than turnovers. They've continued to figure that out somehow every game. But I would have liked maybe another move. I'm not in that realm where I'm so upset that he didn't make some crazy splash move for one of those top defensive ends. I just think it's a little unrealistic for what you would have had to pay. But I would have honestly liked some sort of corner. It didn't have to be some star name, just a body in there to help out a little bit, because there's some games where I'm like, what happens? Like, what if Wright gets hurt? We're really like in the trenches at this point. It's just,
I can't tell you how many times I've gone from, oh, I think Nahshon Wright's unplayable as a corner to he's been banged up a little bit on the field. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen if he gets hurt? But just the flip between the two of I hate you, but I need you I hate that this is where I'm at.
Yeah, me too. And now we're seeing obviously Blackwell's injured too. So I'm not really sure what they do if anything else happens at this point. So
I don't know. Maybe Ryan Poles can play some corner at this point.
Yeah.
Next question. The Giants are 2-7 in fourth, trailing the Commanders, who are struggling at 3-6. Jaden Daniels gonna be out for a while with that dislocated elbow. The Cowboys, who are 3-5. Jerry Jones apparently thinks that they are just in the running with all the trades with the trades he's making. What would Brian Daboll and the Giants have to do for the rest of the year for Brian Daboll specifically to keep his job?
We had a long conversation about this on Helmets and Heels yesterday. I think that Daboll might be a little lucky losing Neighbors and Scadaboo, because I think you kind of have that in your back pocket of, look what my offenses were doing when these guys were healthy. They also have had a brutal schedule to start, by the way. If no one's go back and look at the start of the Giants schedule. Like,
pretty terrible.
It's been pretty tough. And so I do think he has those couple things, dangling there. I think the biggest things for me, if you continue to see Jackson Dart still make plays and be a big part of that offense. I know right now the top 10 rushing rookies, Jackson Dart's like third or something like that in rushing yards. So he's using his legs a lot. He has one of the better arms too. So if some of those things start to pan out and you're seeing him develop in a good way, we talk about this defense. The defensive front is good, and Brian Burns is having a career year, and that's one of the biggest worries that I'm looking at this weekend. But I do think there's things that he can kind of say, but look, I didn't have my two offensive weapons that I game planned the entire offseason around. So give me one more year. Granted, I think he's in year 4, so I don't really know what contracts and stuff look like in that. But I do think he has a little bit to hang over, being like, we've been able to score a good amount of points against some good teams. Let me see what I can do with my two offensive weapons that I lost.
Yeah, Brian Daboll signed a 5-year deal back in 2022. So he has one more.
Okay.
But you do run into that whole like lame duck contracty thing. And even with Joe Shane a little bit, does he want to distance himself? Where if you have one more really bad year, does the Mara family, are they just over it? I think you're right. He might have lucked out with how all of this has turned out. I think you need to see some steps from Jackson Dart where you can really point to and say like, hey, look, this guy came in. We had a terrible schedule, as you said, to start with, but you can see he got better, and I'm the reason he got better because, with the coaching I gave. All right. Love it, hate it, rehabilitate it. A matchup or a specific dynamic that we love for the Bears, one we hate for the Bears, and one that if we were the coach, we'd focus on fixing this week. My love was Ben Johnson versus the Giants defensive coordinator, Shane Bowen. In their last 3 games, the Giants have allowed 33, 38, and 34 points. New York Giants ranked 29th in EPA per play allowed. They're allowing an average of 382.1 yards per game through their first 9 weeks. And their run defense is specifically very terrible. They allow a rushing EPA per play at 0.151, which ranks 32nd, dead last. Hello, Kyle Monangai / DeAndre Swift. And I will say, Brian Burns has recorded 11 sacks so far this year, but the rest of the team have 5 sacks combined. Meanwhile, the Bears, right? I mean, we talked about how good the offense has been this year. They rank 9th in total yards, 5th in yards per play, 7th in percent of drives ending in a score, 7th in offensive EPA per play, and 6th lowest drives that end in a turnover. So overall, pretty good.
Yeah, I love hearing all those offensive stats. It's honestly still hard to believe some of the days. My love kind of plays off of that, and it's the run game. The Giants are 30th in the NFL, allowing 148.9 rushing yards a game and a league high of 5.7 yards per carry. I think that's going to be kind of the recipe to get this game going. Like we've seen recently when Monangai and Swift have their days, I feel like it opens up so many things for the offense. They have a lot of tackling issues. They have one of the highest missed tackle rates in the NFL right now. So yes, the pass rush can be strong, especially from a Brian Burns, but I do think that you can take advantage and run a lot. And I do think that because of that, maybe you get some stacked boxes. And because of that, then you are able to open up some of the fun things deep down the field.
And just to blend into that, I mean, my hate is just kind of cheating because I already mentioned it, but it is going to be Brian Burns.
That's funny. That's mine too.
He's second in solo tackles, third in assisted tackles, second in sacks. He pops across the defensive line as well. So like last week, he played 3 snaps at left end, 25 at left offensive linebacker, 4 at right end, and 10 at right offensive linebacker. So I would expect that he gets a lot of run at Theo Benedict, which, I mean, last week, Benedict allowed a team high 5 pressures, which resulted in 5 hurries. And that Bengals defensive line as a whole is just way less talented than Burns is. So
especially without Trey Hendrickson.
Especially without Trey Hendrickson. So I'm concerned. I'm hoping that you see a little bit of tight end running back chip help. I think in this offense, Ben does ask a lot of his tackles. They're left on islands a lot. And I remember one play in particular, Colson was supposed to do a chip, and it was like, I'm going to slightly extend my arm and get out my route. You need to help a bit on Brian.
Yeah, Brian was my hate also. I just feel like when you talk, and to your point, I was saying, I know he does move around a little bit, but he does have the majority of his pressures and sacks on the right side in general. And that's where your weakest link is on the Bears line. So I do think that's going to be a focus. I think this game, you have to give Theo some help. And I think Theo's been decent, like I feel like since we've made those changes in the beginning of the season, it kind of looked like, whoa, this is a hot mess. What's going on? And then you kind of felt like, and then the way when he first got thrown into right tackle, then moved to left, we were like, this is about to be disaster. I think he's held his own. I think the other 4 guys are good though. So I do think that at giving him some chip help in this game is going to be needed.
And of course, and Theo's been great in the run game. I mean, he's been a greater. He had that one play where he literally put the Bengals player on the bench. Yeah. Right. I mean,
I think that was also Stewart, by the way.
I think that was also Stewart. Poor Stewart. But it's the pass blocking has been a little questionable. What was your rehabilitate?
Yeah, kicking. We talked about it a little bit already. I don't know I don't know the answer to this right now. Do you abandon Cairo and go with Moody? When does that decision even happen? If it does, I don't know. But I do think that it just scares me because I feel like if you get to a point where it is a game-winning field goal, and I know we've already seen one against, we saw a blocked field goal against the Raiders. Did we win on a game-winning? Yes, early on. Yes. I can't remember which game, but we've seen that. So that's positive. But I do feel like it's one of those situations with how we've seen him perform, especially this last game, that if you need to make a 44-yard field goal to win the game, I'm terrified. Like I'm leaving the room because I can't watch it. And I don't want it. It shouldn't be like that with that close. So I do think you've got to figure out something in the kicking area. And I guess when you talk about special teams in general, that side too.
We are peas in a pod today because I put the damn special teams. You already talked about the kicking, so I'll just focus a little more on like the kick coverage and return. For that, it's a bit of combination of lane integrity on the kicking and the kickoff, as well as the a little bit of want to. That just what a lot of special teams is. It's fighting through the block you need to. It's being able to maintain your job, your lane. And then on the return, I mean, I know people won't like this, but I put Burden back there, to be quite honest. I know he's just coming off concussion, so it's like, oh, Mason, but what about, the injury risk? And that's entirely true, but each time he touches the ball, whether it's on offense, whether it's on special teams, it's been magical. It's an explosive play waiting to happen. And at this point in time, I just think you need a little bit more back there. And it's football. We can't be, if your goal is to have Burden get more touches in offense, I don't think you can be too scared of having him get an extra touch or 2 in the kick return game. But that's just me.
I like it. They have the option of putting 2 back there too. So there's different things that they can start figuring out when it comes to the return game with the new kickoff. But it does just feel like at this point, every team's like I'm definitely just kick it in the landing zone at any point because they're only getting 15 yards out of it. So that's an important one.
X Factor for the Giants. What do you got?
Yeah, so I'm going to say pressuring Caleb. I think that when it comes to, and we just talked about Brian Burns and his numbers and what he can do and what that may look like against Theo Benedette. But when you talk about other guys, Dexter Lawrence and what he can do on the line, Thibodeau, what he can do on the line. Roy Robinson here is a familiar name in Chicago. So we've seen bits of how he can create pressures and wreak havoc up there too. And I just think we've seen in moments through Caleb's career in general, but even at times this year when he's getting pressured constantly, throws are rushed, and that's when you've seen some of the mistakes or some of the bad overthrows. I think that's when things kind of go a little off plan. And the moment things go off plan, granted, I feel like he zones in the fourth quarter, but I don't know if this is a game where you can wait until the fourth quarter to let things start to click late. So I do think that, and if that's what you mean, like the X factor for the Giants is how the Giants win. Is that what you're asking, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
I just want to make sure I'm not going on a different rant. But yeah, so I think if they're pressuring Caleb, that gives them a lot of opportunities defensively to try and get turnovers, just make Caleb make mistakes, which hasn't happened a ton this year, but the times it has, it's when he's under pressure.
Mine was for them to, because I think the Bears defense currently is still relatively weak. So, and their run defense itself has also been relatively weak. And so I think the Bears Giants need to, I know Sked was out, but try to reestablish their ground game. I mean, last year, Tyrone Tracy was still a solid running back. I saw a chart today that literally showed like help from blocking and then like EPA based off that help. Yes, his EPA was low on that chart, but also like the help from blocking was criminally low. So that offensive line is a bit of a hot mess. I just don't think that you can keep up with the Bears as how they're currently playing on offense if you're just going to rely on the arm of Jackson Dart.
Yeah, I like that one. And I think that any team probably is looking at the Bears saying, this is a game where you can get the run game right. And so I do think they'll lean into that.
Just popping in for the Bears. For me, it's control what you can control, specifically penalties. Bears rank 4th in penalties this year. That's not really a news for anyone, but they had 7 last week, which is down from a depressing 11 the week before. But 7 is still far too high. There's too many times where you have a positive play on offense, but it's brought on back by a hold, or you don't even get the playoff because there's some pre-snap issue. And so you really have to continue to reel that in, because a lot of it is just simply, some of it's Caleb, especially, maybe some of the false starts and things like that with the cadence stuff, but some of it is also just, being a solid professional football player.
Yeah. I know that Ben Johnson has to be fuming over some of the penalties that have happened this season, because I am, and he's a perfectionist. So he has to, I know some of these guys are getting cussed out after the game for the penalties, even after a win, probably. So I definitely agree with you on that one. And I'm going to go with the run game. I think if you can continue, if the Bears can run the ball like they have, like this last week with Monangai, whether it's him or whether it's those couple games that we saw a lot of Swift, I think that's so important. I just think what we've seen is that the pressure it takes off of Caleb. So in reverse, when I'm talking about the pressuring Caleb, if you can run the ball, there's a lot of different things I think that you can start to do offensively once people are like, okay, well, Kyle Monangai is going to get 7-8 yards every time he has the ball. Then it just opens up a lot of opportunity. And I think that Caleb always, I almost said Trevor because I covered Trevor once. Caleb always wants to play hero ball. And there's some times where I think that is his biggest issue, is he always wants the big play to happen. This last game, there were a few times, and I know Archuleta was saying it way too much, but there were a few times where I was like, Caleb, take off, run. And so when I say run game, I also mean Caleb using his legs, because we saw in the fourth quarter what he can do with his legs, how dangerous he can be. So I think all of that combined opens up a lot for the offense.
It's funny you bring up the Archuleta thing. Like, man, I had to mute it at one point. It's like
it was driving me insane.
It's just saying the same thing over and over again, my dude. All right, we are going to go on to our Bear gut check. This is where we use our gut feelings, revitalized by kombucha, of course, to give our game predictions against the line. We'll start with this game: Giants at Bears. Bears are favored by 3.5. Who do you got?
Yeah, I have the Bears 27-20 was my prediction. I keep going back and forth of, okay, is this going to be a game where a lot of points are scored, because defensively the Bears aren't very good, and defensively the Giants have some issues outside of some of the stuff up front. But I keep going to, I think we'll see some stuff, but I do think we're still trying to get some kinks and some of the issues like the penalties cleaned up. And so I do think the Bears win. I think it's by a touchdown. I hope it's by more, so I'm not stressed, but that's what I'm kind of picturing.
I would agree with that. I think the Bears win, and I think this one they win comfortably in the fourth. It might be a little close at halftime just because they've been a little slower at times, but this just isn't the most talented team right now. Their front defensively is talented, but Jackson Dart's still a rookie. Their pass catchers and run game is just there's not a lot there. Their back end on the defense is not very good. We also talked about there's some injuries floating around in here, and I think ultimately there is a problem with that coaching staff too. There's a problem a little bit in that locker room with how much the belief there is. You compare that to the Raiders game where, the Raiders at the time still, they were a motivated team trying to win that game. You look at the Bengals, right? And they're fighting still to try to keep the boat afloat. And there was a 2-game difference that Jets lost and the Bears lost from being 5-3 versus 3-5. So I think this just has a different feeling to it in terms of where the Giants are compared to some of these teams. So I think this should be more like the Cowboys game.
I would love it. I would love to not be stressed in the final 3 minutes of the game, which I thought I wasn't going to be last week. And then all of a sudden.
All right. Tonight's game, Raiders at Broncos. Broncos are favored by 9.5.
Yeah, I think the Broncos may win by more than 9.5, honestly. Granted, obviously the Jags just played the Raiders, and I also cover the Jags, and they pushed them into overtime. And honestly, Pete Carroll he went for 2 instead of kicking the field goal to tie. Brock Bowers changes that offense a lot. So maybe it is a little closer, but I just think that the between the Broncos defense and some of the things Bo Nix can do, he has a really good offensive line, so he has a lot of time to kind of think about what they're doing back there. So I could see maybe that line is about right.
Yeah, I'm not a Nix believer, but that defense is very good. If there's going to be any defense that can try to hold back Brock Bowers and his crazy 12 catch, 3 touchdown performance, it'd be this defense. And Nix does enough as that extension of Sean Payton that I think they actually could cover this 9.5. So I'd agree with you on the Broncos. Yeah. All right. Ravens at Vikings. Bears actually play Vikings upcoming, but Ravens are favored by 4.5. Who do you got?
Ravens at Vikings. That's a good one. I guess I'll go Ravens. I think that we saw even without Lamar Jackson what the Ravens can do. I think they've started getting healthy, and that's helped, during the game with us. It's the healthiest Roquan's been, and you started seeing that defense do a little bit of better things than you saw in the beginning of the season. I still think they need some help in the secondary, which is odd because I love so many of their secondary players. Obviously, Kyle Hamilton is one of my favorite. But I still think that the Ravens, I probably want to say the Ravens by a touchdown, honestly.
I would agree with that too. I just think with what Kyle Hamilton is and what they can do, it's really interesting because when the Ravens have had issues in their back end, but Kyle Hamilton is such a Swiss Army knife that they can go and trade for whoever we can get, and he'll just do what he needs to do. Yeah. And so you put that with JJ McCarthy, who did you see his post game video?
Yeah.
Oh, that was so cringy. It was awful. I'm not a JJ guy. I'm not there yet. I need to see more. And so I just think between Lamar being Lamar and I think that Ravens defense being healthier and better, a touchdown win is I think pretty easy. Maybe.
Yeah, I think too, the Vikings offensive line is hurting really bad right now. And I think that's something that you can take just between injuries. Obviously, it was a line that I thought actually would be pretty good, but they've just been hit over and over. And I think that the Ravens, although have had issues in that area, this could be a game where they turn that up.
On Sunday Night Football, Steelers at Chargers. The Bears will play the Steelers in 2 weeks. Chargers are favored by 3.
I have no idea what the Steelers are, honestly, because I feel like this last week I picked against the Steelers because I was like, okay, well, their defense looked bad the last couple weeks. Aaron Rodgers is playing all right. He has some good moments, but it's not the old Aaron Rodgers. So I just kind of have felt like maybe they were falling off, but then this last week happens and I'm like, never mind, the Steelers are back. So I can't really quite figure out what they are. I think the Chargers defense, I really like the tough physicalness of what John Harbaugh has made the Chargers. That's been one of my favorite things just when it comes to running the ball, using a fullback, some of the things he does defensively. So I guess I'll go. I think that line feels about right.
I agree with you, the Steelers, but I also don't know what the Chargers are because you still are going to be without Omarion Hampton. You're now down your left tackle and Joe Alt because he's out.
I feel so bad for them at left tackle.
Oh, it's crazy right now.
I know.
Herbert is insane, right? He's an alien in terms of how
Yeah.
he's operating, and Harbaugh apparently has just opened up his like third eye. So now Herbert just plays a little more Josh Allen stupid, I like to say.
Yeah.
And I say that with all the respect and love in the world. But just with the unknown there and the issues that you're seeing, their defense is very odd as well. You're not getting much from the running game. I think the Steelers, with what the little consistency they do have on defense and with Aaron Rodgers and those pass catchers, I'll go with the Steelers actually covering.
Yeah, I could definitely, I could see it either way. That one's a tricky one. And it is crazy how much Amarian Hampton affected that offense once he left. It's wild how that one player, you take him out and how things can kind of change drastically.
Yeah, like when the Bears play the Steelers in like a couple weeks, I have no idea how I'm gonna look at that game. It's going to be a whole thing.
I'm gonna hate
Last
that.
last one here, Monday Night Football, Eagles at Packers. Packers are favored by 2.5.
Oh, um, I have to do it, and I'm just going to say Philly wins by a touchdown. I feel like, I don't know. I also am not on the Green Bay train. I know there's a lot of people who are like, Jordan Love is a top 5 quarterback, and the Packers can win the Super Bowl. We were hearing so much of that early on. I go through the schedule they've played. To me, they've had a pretty easy schedule up until now, and then we just saw them lose to the Panthers. Jordan Love had one of those games that you see him have, usually 3-4 times a year. He has a game where you're like, what is he doing? So who knows? It could be one of those bounce back games. And we saw the matchup last year. I think it was last year that kicked off the season, the Packers and the Eagles, where it was rainy and wet and crazy. And there was that game was one of the wildest games I had seen in a long time. I feel like it may be one of those where it's coming down to final seconds, minutes, whatever the case may be. But I do think Philly wins by field goal, touchdown, whatever the scenario plays out.
Look, you're the Packers. You just lost to the Panthers. I know that. I know the Panthers are actually doing
They're pretty
decent
good, yeah.
this year, but I just can't get behind that right now. I
Okay.
really can't. Even when I watch the games, with the Panthers games, it's like you won, but
How?
yeah, how did this just happen? I'm very confused when you see that. And to what you said in terms of the Packers schedule, I mean, yes, you beat the Lions, which is great, but you beat a Commanders team that wasn't great. You beat a Browns team. You got overtime against the Cowboys in that shootout, which
And
isn't
tied.
great. We just yeah, exactly. The Bengals, they played the Bengals, they played the Cardinals, and then they beat the Steelers. Like it's just like you said, it's a weird schedule that they've played. And again, you just lost to the Panthers. So and you
Yeah.
put up 13 points. I just can't pick you. So
Yeah.
Philly, I think, wins this. All right, very last bit. Do you have a bold prediction for me?
Yeah, so I kind of said this at the top when we were talking about our knee jerk and me saying that I think that we start getting some sort of pass rush going through towards the end of the season, from now until the end of the season. I think we start seeing a little bit more, but I'm going to say we're going to have a multiple sack game, and I think that a safety gets a sack, whether that be a Brisker, or I'll include CJ Gardner-Johnson. I know he's playing nickel, but one of those two, I think, get a sack. I think Javon Dexter gets a sack. And then I think we see whether it's Sweat or Booker get one too.
And I love that you called out Brisker and CD, as he wants to be called, apparently, Gardner Johnson there, because I mean, CD almost got a sack last week, and I just don't believe in the Giants running backs being able to pick up those blitzes. So I think that's a great one. Well, mine actually, funny enough, is going to stay on the defensive side. I was going to say that Gardner Johnson gets an interception this game.
Oh, I love it. He'll have a great game then.
Yeah, a sack and an interception.
Let's add a forced fumble in there.
What a signing by Ryan Poles. All right, that's all that we have for you today. Thanks everyone for tuning into this preview. And Taylor, thank you so much for popping on. It's always a great episode when you're on. You're a very professional media person. Who'd thunk it with all the 4,000 things that you're on?
Thank you, Mason. It's always fun on here. I love all the little your like coccyx, a bull story that as I'm going, I'm like, it's so funny. I feel like I'm learning and prepping for a show.
Educational and fun. But I said at the top of the show, but tell people where they can find your stuff, because they absolutely should be listening.
Yeah, so on Twitter, you'll find me, or X, you'll find me at Taydol1010XL. I host Helmets and Heels. It's in Jacksonville, mainly based around the Jaguars. So if you are, for whatever reason, also a Jags fan, you can listen to that. But we do cover all NFL and other sports too. And you can find that at wherever you listen to podcasts. I also host a podcast called Making Monsters. That's for Second City Gridiron. You'll find that YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. And then also I'm on the Bear Squad show. I do their Tuesday night show, kind of the recap from the games that usually is out. I want to say like Tuesdays at 7:30-ish on Eastern, 6:30 Central. And so you'll find that also on YouTube and wherever you find your podcasts.
All right. That's all we got for you. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Bear down. Enjoy your weekend. Apparently, it's supposed to snow on Sunday. So
I know, that's wild. Good, better, best.
Good, better, best.